This is Tyler, your antisocial critic and the host of the AntiSocial Network, your number one source for anachronistic conversations online. Come join us each week to hear opinions from some of the best voices discussing entertainment, politics, religion, and modern life on the internet today, most of which you've never heard of, but I have. This week on Antisocial Entertainment, we have a return guest who joined the GroupThink Podcast twice before. Jacob Airey is a vociferous film geek, a writer for the Daily Wire, and the host of Studio Jake on YouTube. We recently sat down on his channel to discuss Blade Trinity for his channel Movie Makeover Masterpiece, which is a long title, and you should all go check it out. Good morning, Jake. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. How are you?
Well, as you kind of picked up over the phone, I am very, very sleepy. I don't know why I'm exhausted as I am, but I slept until at least 11 o'clock my time for some reason.
Oh, dang. This morning I did get up bright and early, but only because the garbage truck in LA woke me up.
Well, there you go. So yeah, I talked about bringing you on for the immediate aftermath of the Clone Wars, which we're a little late on. It happened last week, but I would assume that's giving you time to catch up on that, so...
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm all caught up.
Great. So, did you watch the original run of Clone Wars back in the day, or was it something you kind of caught up on later?
I watched it brand new from when it was on Cartoon Network to when it moved to Disney XD. I followed the whole series.
I don't remember when it switched to XD. Maybe that was a little after I stopped watching, because I remember I pretty much stopped when Maul appeared, because I thought, oh no, this is the point where it's going to start sucking, and then I found out later that that's like the best stuff in the series, and I had to go back and watch all of it when it was on. I think I didn't watch it till it was back on Disney Plus, but yeah, I wish I hadn't waited on all that, because it turns out all the best stuff is like right at the end of the series. But
yeah, it's true.
But I remember I watched the series premiere back on Cartoon Network back in the day. That would have been I was like 13. Gosh.
And I was actually prepared to not like it because I didn't like the shorts. I don't. For those of you who don't remember, before it became a CGI based show, they had like these 2D animation shorts, and I thought that they were awful. Mainly because the animation didn't impress me. But once the show actually kicked off, I was like, oh, this is actually a pretty good show.
Have you gone back and watched the shorts at all?
No, not recently. It's been a long time.
I reviewed them last year. They aged well for me. I mean, I like the animation director. It's the same guy who did Samurai Jack, so maybe I'm a little bit...
Well, yeah, I remember that. That's why maybe that's too... like I said, I might have a bias because, I grew up Batman the Animated Series, X-Men the Animated Series, Transformers, which all had stellar animation, and I thought, why does Mace Windu's head just look like a bowling ball? It's like,
Well, that could be a problem, I could see, but I don't know. I didn't mind them back in the day, but I actually think I watched them because they came out right before Revenge of the Sith, so I think I actually did see them when they were premiering, but wow, I would have been really tiny at that point. But yeah, so what I guess I would say the new season of the Clone Wars has probably been one of the more well-received overall things to come out of the last few years. Like, what was your reaction to the new season watching it play out?
I thought it was good. I did feel like some of the episodes were pulled from unused scripts.
Oh, yeah.
Because they felt like, in my humble opinion, like the Bad Batch, which were really great characters. I'm not in any way diminishing that. But I felt like their intro episode might have been written for a previous season and it wasn't used because it felt like, oh, this feels like an old episode. It feels like it belongs like in season 3 or season 4 even. And but that's not to say I didn't like it. I thought it was great. I thought that they were good because a lot of the clones kind of start feeling the same. So it was cool to see these unique characters. Same with actually Ahsoka meeting these two sisters. I felt like that was probably meant to be episodes where Ahsoka just got lost on Coruscant after a battle and or another planet maybe, and they just edited the script where it fit with her being resigning from the Jedi Order and all that. That was kind of my impression, but overall I liked it. I liked the battle with Ahsoka and Darth Maul. I thought that the animation for that was pristine. That was one of the best lightsaber duels as far as the animation in Star Wars was. So I thought it was good overall. Like I said, I did feel like some of it what they were just dusting off scripts. But other than that, I really thought it was good. I was really impressed by it.
My takeaway from it was just that it was a particularly uneven season because, like you said, that first arc, that was I seem to recall they released the storyboard of it back in like 2014 or something like that, like right after it was canceled, because that would have been part of the it would have been part of the Lost episode season when they were still doing the original Cartoon Network run, but the whole thing was obviously canned because they wanted to put Rebels into production, so that was already completely storyboarded, and they just used it as kind of their crutch to get the first 4 episodes of the season done. And obviously they added a little more like stuff to make it tangentially set right at the end of right before Revenge of the Sith, so that the timeline fits a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that second arc with Ahsoka and the 2 girls, that was, I think I hated it watching it. I was like absolutely in agony. Like, this is like the worst episodes of the Clone Wars in the first 3 seasons, just dragged on to a 4-episode arc. Make it stop. And the design of those 2 girls, I'm like, this was designed by a social justice warrior, wasn't it? Like,
oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, I saw the haircut of that one girl, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they got to Disney now. But
I actually think if it had just been, I agree with you. I think if it had just been 1 episode, it would have been fine. But since they drug it out 3 episodes, I was kind of like, by the end of it, I was kind of like, okay, I'm ready to go back to the clones, and see what's happening with the droid army and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, and then the weird part is when it finally gets to the Siege of Mandalore, the quality just spikes up and it just elevated the whole season. Like, now everyone's like, man, that season was great, except for the first 2 parts, but that third part was so great. Which it was. It kind of suffers from not being from the fact that you know exactly what's going to happen to these characters in Rebels, which I don't know if you've watched that in whole or not, or...
Oh yeah, I loved Rebels. I thought it was good. I didn't like the first season, but after that I felt like it picked up.
I think I watched right up until the Ahsoka Vader fight, and then I kind of fell off, but I need to go back and finish it, but... I mean, in terms... I'm trying to think of what to say about the Siege of Mandalore, because pretty much everyone just says, "Oh, it's great, it's perfectly great." No, there's no real. I haven't really heard any good criticism on it.
Well, I will say there was one thing that confused me about it, and it's that at the end of the original run of the Disney run, it shows Darth Sidious killing Maul's brother, Savage, I think his name was, and then he takes Maul captive, and so you're thinking, "Oh, Maul obviously got captured and he's been imprisoned," because in Rebels he's like this wandering old man with this weird cane lightsaber, but then you find out, oh no, that's not the case. He's perfectly fine, still running Mandalore for the Emperor. He's just wanting to break away and whatnot. So I did think that was a little confusing. Because it totally sets it up for the show, original run, sets it up for a totally different ending for Darth Maul's arc. And then, boom, we're right where we left him all those years ago. So there's a little bit of criticism for you. That confused me just a little bit. And he kind of makes like vague stuff where you can go, okay, I can see where the pieces connect. But it's still for me. Like I said, I thought it was a great arc. There was nothing wrong with it, but I did think I needed a little bit more substantiation to know why he was where he was.
I actually have an answer for that. There was going to be an arc immediately after the finale with Darth Maul where they did address that, and he was apparently rescued by some of the Mandalorians that were fanatically supporting him. But it was cut because they didn't make it. It was going to be part of season 6 or season 7, and apparently it was released as a graphic novel a couple of years after the show called Son of Dathomir. So there is a comic book you can read if you want to have the answer, but obviously that's supplemental material, and I would have liked it if they had actually gone back and added that arc in during this season. But obviously they only gave him 12 episodes. I'm curious if they're gonna try and do an 8th Lost episode season, because they do have enough material to do at least 3 more arcs from what I've read. At this point, it seems like the Clone Wars is the most unambiguously celebrated thing to come out of Star Wars in the last couple of years. So,
well, and one thing that I know that they kind of explain this in the show, because they have storylines where you'll see Anakin Skywalker's arc, and then they'll show a different Jedi, and he'll have a different arc, but it's at the same time. But according to canon, if you're going by the movies, and if you're going by the old Lucas rules that the movies are boss, right? The Clone Wars only lasted a year, but then it's like the show keeps making it, extending it, and you feel like it's going on for a long time. Does that make sense?
I thought it was canonically 3 years. That was my understanding from the movies.
For 3 years? That confuses me a little bit because of how old the Anakin and Padme were. I could be wrong about that, but I felt like there was something that Obi-Wan said made me think that it was just a year in the third one, in Revenge of the Sith.
I'd have to find the line, but I remember I used to memorize the date charts and stuff, and I seem to recall the date was a 3-year gap there. But okay. I could be wrong. 3 years feels right, considering how much visual change there is between the characters and everything that's happening around them. But
that's true.
But yeah. Plus, Ahsoka ages like 5 years in the entirety of the series. So
you can always blame the species for that. Whatever her species is.
Rapidly advancing age. I don't know. I can only imagine how old she is by the time you see her at the end of Rebels.
Yeah, and the Mandalorian as well, because they're introducing her in the Mandalorian.
Yeah, there were a couple things I wanted to talk about, and beyond the Clone Wars, which we can come back to. I wanted to talk some about the upcoming Star Wars stuff, because I know you are a distinct critic of the current direction of the series, but sure. I think a lot of the better voices are really winning out right now, because we got Dave Filoni running multiple series right now. We got the new movie with Taika Waititi. We got at least another season of The Mandalorian coming out, and there's going to be there's a sequel to Jedi Fallen Order coming out to coincide with the next movie. Mm-hmm. I think the developments are overwhelmingly in the right direction. Like, what do you think the direction's going right now?
I think for the standalone stuff, it's going in a good direction. For the main arc, I'm still not happy with it. But I actually was really excited when I heard that Taika Waititi is going to do a Star Wars film, because he is an excellent director. Loved Thor Ragnarok. Loved Jojo Rabbit. I do hope he takes it a little bit more seriously. I would prefer it to be not as humorous as he's kind of known for. But I'm willing to see a comedic Star Wars film as long as it's good. As far as Fallen Order sequel, I am diehard excited for this. I wish they would have announced it as soon as the first one came out, because I loved the first game. It's and I also, the actor who voices Cal in the game, Cameron something, I can't remember how to pronounce his last name, but he is the Joker in Gotham, which is as far as television is one of the best live action versions of the Joker. So I think that seeing him return as a Jedi Knight is going to be really epic. So yeah, I'm happy with sort of the standalone stuff that's coming out. With the main series in flux, I'm not optimistic. But hopefully, like you said, the voices of reason are winning out, especially now that Bob Iger is gone. Rumor has it he micromanaged The Rise of Skywalker, which is probably why it ended up being, in my opinion, I thought it was mediocre. I didn't think it was bad, but I thought it was mediocre. So we often see that when projects are micromanaged.
Well, there you go. I'm not exactly sure what their plan is for the main series going forward, because if Taika Waititi is directing a movie, I assume that means he's directing the one that's coming out in 2022. Which is the next big series one, but they haven't really talked about what the series is going to do going forward, so it's not clear what that is yet.
I'm wondering if his film isn't going to be the one that Rian Johnson was originally supposed to direct. Because remember, he was supposed to direct a trilogy, because initial reviews of The Last Jedi were really good, and I know you like it, and you and I have a difference of opinion. But then, of course, he had his big break with Disney. And so I'm wondering if they're going to give this script to him and just to see where it goes. I don't know if that's the case. He may be getting a whole new project, but Disney and especially Lucasfilms, they don't like to just give people an opportunity to be unique. They like to give people stuff they already have. So I'm curious that makes me suspicious about that. But I could be wrong. He could be doing his own script, which I think the movie honestly would be better if that was the case.
The script, to my knowledge, it's going to be Taika's working on it, and he's collaborating with the woman who wrote 1917. So. Oh,
well then there you go. See, I didn't know that. That would be fantastic then.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, like, I'm curious as to what direction they're going to go for, because they haven't announced what their plans are. Like, really, the only long-standing narrative thing they've got going right now is the High Republic books, which you and I seem to be somewhat divergent on. But I'm curious if they're going to finally, like, go back and do, like, a KOTOR movie, or if they're going to try to, like, push the timeline forward radically. But I'm very fascinated by what the opportunities they have here, because I don't think they're going to do the Star Wars story thing going forward. Seems like
and actually, I'm actually excited about the High Republic. I am a little worried because some of the authors they hired don't have good track records. But in all fairness, there have been really bad sci-fi writers who have written really good Star Wars novels.
Yeah.
And one thing too is I like that era of the High Republic. I've always thought that they should do films and or a TV show or a book series based in that era. I always found the era where the Jedi are kind of like the Texas Rangers, which is how they kind of describe it in their intro video, as very fascinating. So I am excited for the High Republic. Like I said, again, hesitant about some of the authors they've hired, but who knows? Maybe they'll keep they'll keep it Star Wars, and they'll treat it as a setting and not a genre. That's what we're hoping for anyway, or at least that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, I've had high hopes since I found out that they put Charles Soule as the first book that's going to come out in the entire series is going to be by him. And I talked about him a little bit with you, but he did the reboot of Daredevil after Mark Waid was shown the boot, and right. He did a really good job with that. I know he's also done a bunch of Star Wars series, which I have not read yet, but I do need to at some point. So I'm generally of the opinion that he's an above average writer, and that he's probably gonna guide this first couple set of books in pretty smoothly, from what I can tell. I'm not familiar with the rest of the writers though. Like you said, that there are a couple of them are questionable.
Yeah, I did, some of their names or most of their names escape me, but like I Googled them and they've all written basically kind of, or not all, I should say a few of them have written basically like teen drama stuff. And so that's why I'm a little hesitant. Now, I don't know about the content, whether they're SJWs or not. And I did read one sort of more right-leaning nerd site that was saying some of them are. I don't know. I'm not familiar with their work. But that was kind of what is concerning me. But like I said, the guy who wrote Star Wars, the New Jedi Order, whenever they introduced the Yuva Vong and all, I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Oh yeah, the Yuzan Vong, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Whenever they introduced him, I wasn't impressed with some of his writings before, but then that book was amazing. And so I loved it. I didn't read much after that. I thought they kind of jumped the shark after that with the main book series.
After Chewbacca was crushed by a moon in the first book.
As he raises his hands defiantly.
Gritty new Star Wars, like this isn't your daddy's Star Wars.
Well, his death didn't really bother me because they at least gave him a heroic death, and so that didn't necessarily. It did bother me that they killed him off, but I didn't think the death was bad. But yeah, I felt like a few books into it, I felt like they were kind of like Mara Jade having the Force cancer. I was kind of like, I kind of felt like, okay, I think they're running out of ideas at this point when that starts to happen, when they introduce concepts of the Force that have previously been unheard of. That's kind of my take on it, and that's what I'm looking. Hopefully, we won't get that with the High Republic. Hopefully, they'll focus more on the battles of good and evil and these space Vikings that are coming to invade the Galactic Republic. So we'll see.
I like the idea of finding new ways to do Force magic outside of the dichotomy of the Force and Sith. That seems kind of an interesting concept.
Well, no, I don't mean that, but it's just like the Force now gives diseases. That's what I mean. I'm like,
yeah, that was a weird idea. I mean, and that's what happens when you write 20 books in a row. I mean, you just start throwing everything at the wall and see what sticks. But I mean, in regards to the new stuff, I think that the idea of like trying to break out of just the two classes of Jedi and Sith is kind of an interesting idea, where you can kind of break out. And obviously, you had stuff like the Night Sisters before that were kind of just their own thing, but it's expanding Star Wars, I think, in the right direction, because it kind of gives more of depth to the Force and what you can do with it. I mean, it's kind of...
actually, there were a few people complaining about Rey's ability to Force heal, and in the Rise of Skywalker, and I actually defended that, because especially the people who are crying about the sequel trilogy, and I'm among them. I'm not saying that that camp is bad, but in the expanded universe, certain Jedi were able to make unique abilities. They were able to have unique abilities. So Rey having the ability to Force heal didn't really bother me, because they didn't say, oh, all Jedi can now Force heal. It was just an ability that she had developed through her use of the Force. So that didn't really bother me. And, I would like to see more of that with these High Republic stories.
Yeah, I'm curious to see when it actually does come out. I was kind of hoping they would push it up a couple months and just be like, hey, the first book's on Audible now because you're all bored at home, but no such luck. The book industry doesn't move that quickly. So, I guess the other big thing that's going on right now are the Disney Plus series, which they're starting to ramp up. What are your thoughts on the 1001 updates to The Mandalorian that have just dropped within the past 3 weeks?
I'm excited about it. I think that the list of directors they've dropped, they're all good directors. I'm very impressed with that. I do worry about them introducing known characters into the series. I would have hoped that they would have stayed a little bit more just developing their own kind of continuum and whatnot. But I understand they want to connect it to Rebels and Clone Wars, so that way it feels like it's part of the Star Wars universe. But I am excited to see. I actually am excited to see Ahsoka grown up. Rosario Dawson has been cast as her. She's a fantastic actress. Katie Sackhoff, who played, her name escapes me, but she's another Clone Wars character. She's one of the Mandalorians. She's going to reprise her role in live action form, which I think is phenomenal. There's even rumors that, her name escapes me, but the Mandalorian girl who was the graffiti artist in Rebels,
Sabine.
Sabine, thank you. Yes, that she's going to come to try, because we saw, spoiler alert, in the finale of The Mandalorian, the Imperial Fleet General had the Darksaber, and so there's a rumor that Sabine is going to come and try to retake the Darksaber. So we'll have to wait and see how and where that goes. But I'm actually really excited about The Mandalorian. I think it's a phenomenal show. I'm constantly battling with folks that I respect. They're like, oh, it was so boring. I'm like, or they say it doesn't flow. I'm like, it's because it's episodic. Remember the Star Trek The Next Generation and X-Files? It's episodic with an overarching plot. That's what makes it so good. So, but anyway, I'm very excited. Peyton Reed, Bryce Dallas Howard, who her episode that she directed in season 1 was my least favorite, but I still didn't think it was bad. I just thought it was too similar to the Western film they were copying. But yeah, I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to come together really well.
Did you watch The Gallery that just premiered on Disney Plus last week for Star Wars Day?
I have not, sadly. I did not watch The Gallery. That's the one thing I forgot to view.
It's so wholesome. I think there's a new episode out. I'll have to double check. But the first episode was it was just the directors sitting in a room talking. And it was just the most wholesome thing you ever watch. And when they finally got to Bryce Dallas Howard, they're like, okay, so we got to the point where we needed to shoot episode 4, and we realized this is going to be the biggest technical undertaking in the show. And they thought, who can we bring on that doesn't know this is going to be a crappy episode to shoot? Someone who wasn't involved before. Hey, we got a good job for you. And then she's like, yeah, thanks for that. So apparently that episode was a bit of an undertaking because there was like outdoor shooting and a lot more things that could go wrong because the rest of it was indoors, which is interesting because apparently the whole thing was rear screen projected. They didn't use green screen. They were rear screening the whole process.
That's really cool.
That seems to be the new thing that they were doing. Because I remember they were talking about that when First Man came out, and it looks a little better than in green screen, I guess, but yeah. Overall, with The Mandalorian, I'm a little worried they're throwing too many fan favorites in there. Like, the moment I heard Boba Fett, I'm like, okay, where are you going with this? Where are you going with this nonsense? Because can you say you're bringing in you're bringing in the other Mandalorians from Clone Wars? Okay, that makes sense because he's gonna go find other Mandalorians. Oh, they're bringing in Ahsoka Tano. Okay, he needs to find a Jedi so that he can figure out what the heck the child is and he can learn about the Force. Okay, we're bringing in Boba Fett. Okay, where are you? Why?
To be fair though, Boba Fett does come back in the expanded universe. So if they do it like the expanded universe, I'm okay with it, right? He blows himself, right? He falls in and think in the expanded universe, and he blows himself out by igniting the Sarlacc's stomach gas, I think is what happens in the novel. And
of course, they give him an over-the-top way to kill the Sarlacc pit.
Yeah. And I think that another bounty hunter who escapes me, but he has a cameo in The Empire Strikes Back as well. He like nurses him back to health, and Boba Fett rewards him at the end of the arc. And so if they do something, it's actually a really good show. I think it's called The Bounty Hunter Wars, or book series. It's a trilogy, as most of the expanded universe is. But it's actually a pretty good book series. And so I think if they emulate that, all the fans will go, oh, we've been wanting to visualize this. But if they do some weird jump the shark, he's actually one of the clones that Boba Fett downloaded his consciousness into, then we might have a problem.
Gosh, that's so bad. I've also heard they might hire the actor who played Boba to do Rex, which that might be a little bit of a long shot, but that could be possible.
See, I don't understand bringing in Rex. That one is a little concerning to me because Rex is supposed to be off farming somewhere during this point in the series. Right?
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I'm not... If they want to just bring the entire surviving cast of the Rebels back, I guess they could. I mean, what's Hera doing right now? I mean, why not? But
and who cares?
What do you... I would... Honestly, I'm concerned they're not saving stuff for Season 3 and 4, because they want to run this series for a while. So I'm like, what do you got for Season 3? Like, what fan favorite are you resurrecting for that point? Like...
And see... This is my problem with The Legend of Korra was on the Nickelodeon sequel to Avatar: The Last Airbender. For those of you unaware, is Season 2 did everything. And so when you get to Season 3, you weren't wowed. And Season 4 was even worse than Season 3. And I know I'm upsetting a lot of fangirls who are cosplaying as her. But the first two seasons are great, but it's just Season 2, they couldn't top it. I mean... her uncle becomes the Dark Avatar, and then she as the Avatar battles him and all this stuff, and it was really cool. But I remember watching it and thinking they can't top this, and they didn't. I mean, the battle with the Red Lotus was good, but it wasn't that. And the same with her battling a giant metal bender as the series finale. That was a letdown. I was like, come on, this is how you're going to end this? She just battles a giant robot. And so to that point, I hope The Mandalorian doesn't do that same thing where they try to do too much too fast, and then you just go, well, we can't top this from this point on. But people said the same thing about other shows, X-Files in particular. I mentioned that earlier, and then they just kept topping it. They just kept saying, hold my beer up until David Duchovny left the show. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, the entire show is obviously the relationship between Mando and the child.
Not Baby Yoda.
Well, yeah, that's the legally mandated name is the child, because if you say the Baby Yoda, you get fired at Disney, apparently. So, but I mean, if in order to stretch that out to 5 seasons, that means that there are some major reveals that have to take place rather far out, meaning that there's probably going to have to develop an entire new subplot that runs the series going forward. And I kind of assumed that was going to be the Mando fighting the Moff for the spiritual control of the Mandalorian people, which that kind of what the Darksaber suggested was, oh, he's not just the guy from his past, he's the guy who very specifically murdered his people. And so the subplot of the series is going to become him seeking revenge and then eventually coming into contact with the Jedi, and maybe they finally bring in what's his name, the guy who plays Bucky in the Avengers as Luke Skywalker or something like that, and which
that would be fantastic.
I'm surprised Disney hasn't cast him as that yet. That is like the most neglectful thing, because everyone was like, someone call Disney, tell them they're rich men. Do you remember that meme when that came out?
Well, that's what the rumor was before they announced that they were bringing back the original cast, right? He was going to play Luke, and Carl Urban was going to be Han Solo. And there was no. I had said they should get Maggie Sif to play Princess Leia from Sons of Anarchy. Now I think it should be Carrie Fisher's daughter. But I would actually like to see that, and that could open up the door to them rebooting the sequel trilogy. And I know all the Last Jedi fans would be disappointed, but you can always, as Disney does, you can always write it off as Legends. But I don't know. I would like to, because Mark Hamill has already said, I'm not coming back. Like, if they ask me back, I'm not coming back. So they would have to recast him.
I'm starting to wonder if they're going to try doing a split timeline deal with the Star Wars story, because you know how in Star Wars Rebels they introduced that like time travel portal that
Yes.
if you were a Jedi, you can go into a painting and the painting lets you reach it at any point in time and change it. I'm starting to wonder if what their plan is that they're going to split the timeline up and do like a legacy timeline, the Rey stuff timeline, and then maybe a third timeline that does something a little bit more fan friendly. I'm starting to wonder if that's going to be the way they fix it, because it seems like the way Rebels resolved, it suggested that they were going to go find Ezra, and Ezra has access to the time travel painting. So I'm wondering if that's ultimately what they're going to try to use to try to satiate a lot of the fan frustrations with the current direction.
That wouldn't surprise me. In fact, I actually heard a rumor, and this is on Reddit, who was posting a rumor from someone from 4chan. So I don't know. And just so you know, take this with a grain of salt. But a lot of the rumors that came out of 4chan were true. But there was a rumor that the writers of Star Wars Rebels saw the direction of the sequels and introduced the time-bending force power so that if they did want to reset, they would have precedent for it, because they can say, "Oh, we used it in this TV show." And I don't know if that's true, but that was what a certain person was saying. And like I said, take that with a grain of salt. But that's what I heard, was they intentionally introduced that. And I think you're right. We'll probably see the movies will keep going the direction that was set up with the sequel trilogy, and then. I think they're going to go back to the holocron, where because remember the holocron was side A was the movies and the radio plays, side B was the books, C was the comic books. I think they're going to return to that, and like you said, I think it'll be the TV shows are going to be their own timeline now. The movies are going to be their own, and like you said, they're going to go the direction that Rey and Kylo were on, and then this other one's going to go the direction the Mandalorian is setting up.
Well, that doesn't seem like they're going to do anything with the Rey timeline anymore. Like if anything, my assumption was going to be wait 30 years and then recast the actors as like, oh, this is them a generation later and there's something else going on, and like maybe the Yuzan Vong finally show up. I don't know, but it struck me that we probably weren't going to see any of those actors again, if only because half of them don't want to come back. So
and that's a shame too, because I have never been on the bandwagon that said that Daisy Ridley and John Boyega and Oscar Isaacs and Adam Driver were bad actors. I think, and again, this is just my take on it, I think that they were victims of bad writing, not bad acting. I think Daisy Ridley was perfect for the role of Rey. I think Adam Driver was right for the role of Kylo. And same with John Boyega as Finn, and Oscar Isaacs as kind of the roguish rebel pilot, or resistance fighter. But that's kind of that's my opinion. So I wouldn't mind if they wanted to do, like you said, this time loop thing, and I actually wouldn't mind them coming back to the cast. I think that they would, because I do think they're all good actors and actresses.
We'll have to see. I'm curious if they're going to try bringing Dave Filoni and being like, hey, do another series based right before or right after the new trilogy so we can kind of fill in some of the details, because you're really good at fixing them. But
yeah, apparently the consensus the rumblings, and again, this is all gossip, so I don't know how much of this is true, but the consensus is the staff at Lucasfilms, not the Disney staff, but the staff that were there with George Lucas, they want Dave Filoni to take over. They want Kathleen Kennedy out, and they want Dave Filoni in. Apparently, they all like him. They hate her. So that is, and also I had heard that during the whole sequel trilogy, there were constant clashes between the Disney people and the Lucasfilm people, and they want someone who appreciates the people who are at Lucasfilm want someone in who appreciates the original vision of the franchise. So if they can't even remember what it is, though, I mean, George Lucas doesn't even seem to remember what his original vision is. So we'll have I don't know. And again, this is all gossip. I know you're not a gossip channel, so I hate bringing this in, but it's always fun to talk about movie gossip that's coming in and out of the web.
When it's appropriate, I'm fine with it. I find the gossip to be kind of, it's like you said, with a grain of salt. Like with a lot of, like, especially with the Star Wars news being as big as it is, and so with as many rumors as you hear going around about it, I'm like, I don't like to be the guy perpetuating it. Although I know there's obviously there are a lot of YouTube channels that have made a pretty penny perpetuating it. So I'm like, if I really wanted to be Midnight's Edge, I could be, but yeah. In regards to what else have they got going on the Disney Plus stuff right now? Because it seemed like they've pseudo-announced a whole slate, but they've announced like 4 or 5 series, but the only one that's off the ground right now is Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, supposedly there's a Cassian and KT series. I actually am not looking forward to that one. I like Cassian as a character. I like KT. I'm a huge Rogue One fan, but I'm not looking forward to it because he's dead. So it's like, unless it's going to be like a mini series where they just kind of explain his origin story, like what they did with Solo. I actually was okay with Solo as a concept, just the delivery wasn't that good. So if it's something like an origin where it shows how he was recruited by the rebellion and how he debugged KT and all of this stuff, I would be okay with that. But like if they start getting into like some emotional stories, and I'm like, I already know this guy is dead, that's what I'm worried about for the show.
I could see that being a problem. I don't know what the logic in bringing him back is, unless they want to back alley introduce something else into the series. But like, I kind of think they really need to bring back another anthology series, because there's a lot of ideas they could do just by setting themselves in like the episode 3, episode 4 timeline. Like you could bring back Ansel Elgort and do more Han Solo one-offs, or you could do a Cassian Andor series, or who knows what else. I mean, there's a lot of story ideas. You could even bring back Darth Maul for that vaunted series they seem to keep threatening us with.
The only thing I want to see that the Clone Wars teased for the last half, and then the Rebel series teased it, is I want to see him battle Darth Vader. And because they kept teasing us with it, and then they were like, and then they even set up an episode, but then Ahsoka ends up fighting Vader, and then spoiler alert, Maul gets killed by Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I was kind of like, don't tease me with something, don't, and then not do it. But I did see some people on YouTube, like sword fighters, did like a lightsaber battle with what that would be, and it was actually pretty cool. But anyway, fun fan candy, as I like to call it. But anyway, yeah, why do a Darth Maul series? I'm fine with him I'm actually okay with him making appearances here and there, but I don't need a whole TV show about him.
Yeah, at this point, he's already gotten his full setup and character resolution between Clone Wars and Rebels, so I don't really know what else you can do with him. Unless they... I mean, there was like rumors that he might show up in some capacity in a Mandalorian, and I'm just... Please don't. Please don't. Yeah. I really don't want this. This is not what I want. Unless they're like doing like a flashback of Ahsoka's battle with Maul or something like that. Okay, that's fine. I'm fine with that. But whatever you do, please don't like resurrect him. We don't need him again. We got a perfectly good storyline out of him, and it's already weird that they're trying to make the Clone Wars stuff work in the movie context, because most people who watch the movies aren't familiar with Clone Wars. So that's got to be confusing for some people.
I know I always tease my sister because she's not as big a Star Wars fan as I am, but I was kind of teasing her because during this lockdown, she and her husband had rewatched the series, and I kind of jokingly said, "Oh, don't forget to watch Rogue One. Oh, and Solo. Oh, and the Clone Wars movie. Oh, and the Clone Wars show. Oh, and Rebels." And she's like, "I'm not watching any of the shows." She's like, She's like, "To me, there's just the movies."
Exactly. I mean, the movies are kind of what people circle around, so it can be confusing for some people. But I mean, obviously, Mandalorian is kind of the exception to that. But it does run the risk of getting a little too in deep. Like we already talked about that. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's in good hands. I trust Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau at this point. I think that they can handle it.
Yeah, and to me, this also shows Disney misreading popular things that are popular. So like, there's a group of fans who think Rogue One is better than The Last Jedi. I'm among them, and so they misread that and they go, "Oh, let's make a Cassian show." And it's like, no, we just liked Rogue One for being Rogue One. We don't need a spin-off show. You can do something different that takes place during the same time. Heck, it can even lead up to the battle, the battle at the plant and everything, and the data center. So, Disney has a really bad habit of doing this. So they're like, "Oh, we had great success in the 90s with the 101 Dalmatians live action remake. Let's do another and another and another." And
well, that's Hollywood thought process right now. Oh, they liked the Thing. Let's give them another of the Thing without the thought of what made the Thing work.
Right.
It's cart before the horse thinking right there. But
right.
That's Hollywood. It happens. Although I do think I do like that we're starting to see the first impulses of the reactive Disney. Like, oh, we know what the fans like. We know what the fans don't like. We can start moving in the right direction. Because I've always thought that the phase that we're in right now with Disney was going to be a short-term thing. Like everyone, I always thought the first couple years of Disney was going to be, we're going to make our 77 era fan films that look like the original trilogy, and then once we got that through that first 5, we're going to just start branching off and doing the weird stuff. And that seems to be the kind of the direction they're going with. I think when you see Jedi Fallen Order and High Republic and Mando, and that seems to be where it is going. Although that's
a good thing, and it's always confusing to me because Disney has always been really good about handling franchises. With their own franchises, and with Marvel, they relatively speaking, they handled those franchises well, and I think that's why some people are so confused about, as I call it on my website, I call it their mismanagement of the franchise. I don't. That's one thing that's confusing, because when I heard Disney bought Lucasfilms, I got excited initially, but then, as you know, I've been a huge critic of the sequel trilogy and the direction the theme park went, and so on and so forth, et cetera, et cetera. Don't need to rehash it, but I think that like you said, they're kind of like, okay, we need to stop sending Kathleen Kennedy out there to insult the fans, and we just need to make Star Wars. So, like you said, High Republic, Mandalorian Season 2, a couple of the other projects I'm very excited about. Others I'm kind of iffy on, but I'm willing to give them a try.
What else have they announced for Disney Plus? Like, they got that Obi-Wan series in perpetual development at the moment, but
I'm starting to think that's just a figment of everyone's imagination. Like, it's just a brainwashing technique that Disney is using on us. But I would love to see that. That's actually the one thing fans have been asking for, and it was actually planned when Lucas still owned it, and it keeps going and going and going and going. And I just think, just put it in production already. Ewan McGregor's ready.
Well,
he still looks young. Do it.
Well, the last thing I heard was that they put it on indefinite hiatus because they weren't happy with the scripts, which, credit where it's due, I'm very happy that they took a look at it and said, we don't like where this is going, we're gonna stop, we're not gonna rush this out. If we have to wait another 3 years for it, I'm fine with that, as long as we don't mess up the one more chance you've got to make Obi-Wan cool.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously, I think I'm more eager for that than almost anything else, but I'm glad that they're not rushing it, which I think that's a right.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I was just saying the one thing that proves is that that's the one show that the fans are impatient for, but we keep waiting for it. So, and even me, I'm like you said, I'm happy that they saw the first couple of scripts and like, we don't like this, let's rewrite it. But it's more just an impatience thing. But interest in that series has not died, which I think is incredible, because you think about shows that keep getting these delays, and eventually when they come out, people are like, you kept delaying it. But with us, we're like, bring us Obi-Wan, we want Obi-Wan. So and this is including me in this, I'm talking about myself right now. So I think you're right, and I think, like you said, that is probably a good sign that things are shifting at Lucasfilms.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm very concerned with them right now was that series by the what was that woman that just got announced to be running a new series, Leslie something?
Oh yes,
that is a little bit disconcerting, and it's not just because they don't seem to have a direction planned for it. It's because, for whatever reason, Kathleen Kennedy decided to give Harvey Weinstein's former personal assistant a backdoor entrance into the Lucasfilm studio, and then prematurely leaked the announcement before talking to Disney about it, which is there's a lot wrong with that, and it's wrong. It's not even just like there's one thing wrong with it. It is like 5 things wrong with it. And I'm just like, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm hoping, and I'm hoping, with the negative publicity of her being Harvey Weinstein's former assistant, I'm hoping that will kill the series. But I don't know, because another thing, Disney is, for all the good stuff they do, one of the things they're bad at is beating a dead horse. We see that with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Just let it go. But although I think this season is the final season, so they did finally let it go. They kept blackmailing ABC into keeping it going, basically. So, but you never know. I do hope that, because they said it was a female centric series, and I guess so it was supposed to be an antithesis to Mandalorian. I just hope it wasn't Dr. Aphra. Oh my gosh, that was what a terrible comic book. But anyway,
I really doubt they were gonna base it on anything. I'm sure they were gonna. I'm sure they were just gonna like start from scratch and do something with a female lead. But I have no idea what that means in terms of the story. So I'm like, I assume you're gonna be setting it in the same relative time around the original trilogy, like most of the stuff you're doing. But okay, what are you doing with it? Why? Who's starring? What the kind of faction are they? And okay, whatever. Why are you hiring Harvey Weinstein's personal assistant as the person to do this without a pitch? That just reeks of working of nepotism, for a really weird kind of nepotism at that. Like, does Kathleen Kennedy owe you a favor or something? Were you on Epstein's jet at some point, and now Disney has some sort of bribe against you? I mean, I don't know what the point of this is.
And hopefully, because I do feel like Bob Iger kind of lost control, which is why he was such a micromanager of The Rise of Skywalker. And there's this old saying, never put a peacetime general during wartime and vice versa. And I really feel like Bob Iger, he came in wartime, right? Because they had just lost, what's his name?
Trevorrow.
Who led Disney in the Renaissance, Eisner.
Oh, right.
Bob Iger came on after Bob Eisner almost sank Disney. And so he's a wartime general, and they really needed a peacetime general. And I know that's a weird analogy, but it's the same thing that, is happening with DC Comics and Warner Brothers. They keep bringing in these people that they think it's wartime, and it's like, no, it's peacetime. let's have some fun. It's Star Wars.
Well, Rise of Skywalker kind of was an emergency because they only had a 2-year development cycle on it or something crazy like that. Or was it like a year and a half, 2.5 years? It was probably the shortest development of any of the Star Wars films ever. And if any of the rumors behind the scenes are true, they were editing multiple versions of it, and they had different groups trying to push different edits and different cuts, and it just seemed like a complete train wreck from word go. Which of all the new ones, that's the one I have the most cynicism for, just because it's the one that seems to be the least organized or thought through. Which I don't hate it, but it is what it is.
Right, and that's my thing. The Force Awakens and the Rise of Skywalker. I actually feel like Rise of Skywalker should have been the middle one. Without all the conclusive stuff in it, obviously, but I feel like that one worked better in the middle. And also because it was a big FU to Ryan Johnson. We should do some holo maneuvers. Oh, that shot's 1 in a million. It's like, it's like they intentionally put some scenes and dialogue in there to pretend The Last Jedi didn't happen, which, to be fair, The Last Jedi pretended like The Force Awakens didn't happen. So, just narrative wise. But I feel like with Star Wars, it should be a spectacle. And so in the films, as far as technically, they're very spectacular, but story, they just don't wow me. Mandalorian does, though. The Mandalorian wows me. I like all the story. I like all the episodes. It does, and same with not the Clone Wars final season overall, but just the battle between Ahsoka and Darth Maul. That fight sequence really wowed me, and I actually heard they used stop motion to animate it, which is why it looks so seamless. That's very impressive.
Well, we're jumping around in a lot of different spots all of a sudden, but. Right. I mean, with like The Mandalorian, like that, it benefits just because it has such a solid core to its story. It's about the relationship of those two people, or the Mando and the baby. Like that's the whole point of the series, and it just every single episode is just kind of a different aspect of that relationship. With the new one, with the movies, it's different because these movies are all trying to do different things artistically, and the problem with the third one is that it seems to be trying to do everything at once. In a weird way, and a lot of those like little jabs in there. I'm not sure if that's J.J. Abrams directly kind of going after Ryan Johnson, or if that's just kind of a story excusing it, the script excusing itself from having to explain why something that worked in a previous movie wouldn't work here. It's like, oh, let's do that thing in the last movie. Oh no, let's not do that. Let's do that other thing. No, let's not do that.
Like you said, there's stories of multiple edits. That I think there's even one called the Bob Iger cut, where he personally oversaw the editing. That's one thing. There was the Abrams cut, and then I heard Kathleen Kennedy has a cut, and
supposedly Lucas has a cut. Supposedly George Lucas has a cut.
Yeah, I have heard this. I've reported on that, the George Lucas cut, where he brings in a new character, right, who's supposed to be like one of Luke Skywalker's apprentices or something.
That'd be interesting. The only reason I don't necessarily believe in that is because the amount of money and time that it would take to shoot multiple cuts of a film would be prohibitively expensive. So if these cuts are significantly different, that means that they were just shooting nonstop over the course of a year and just throwing things in and cutting things and throwing them and cutting them again. And I'm like, how much of a active process was writing this film? Because that would mean that they were writing parts of it, throwing it out, writing new parts, throwing other parts out, and just continually rewriting the script, bringing in new creatives to add new ideas and write new things, and then shoot new things, kicking them out, and then eventually just going with a cut that feels like it was made by J.J. Abrams. So it's such a strange, like, homunculus of a film process.
When all these actors' NDAs expire, I'm sure we'll get an earful of what really happened. So I even remember people were talking about the Rogue One reshoots, but then the actor who played Director Krennic said, "Oh, people are exaggerating that. It wasn't as big a deal as people are reporting. We just came in and we did some stuff to make it more cohesive, but he goes, it wasn't that big a deal. I think he called it business as usual for a film." So
yeah, I mean that's the thing about major budget films that you can expect to do reshoots, because at some point the producers are going to look at the rough cut and be like, we like this, this isn't that markable, we don't like this, it's kind of boring, needs a little more comedy. Yeah, it's producers being producers, and so they're like, okay, who's available, bring back XYZ, shoot a scene of Darth Vader murdering a bunch of people, and a lot of it's probably just stuff that was written after the fact to improve the final product. So
the Darth Vader hallway sequence was filmed 4 months before it went to theaters. So, but
that
I'm
wouldn't be surprising.
I'm glad they added that.
Well, that's the favorite scene in the entire film for a lot of people. So that's not surprising that it's like, oh, we should have a scene where Darth Vader does something because he shows up earlier in the film. Well, but they might, or that, or they shot the Darth Vader scene both Darth Vader scenes when they did that. So, but I cannot wait for the expose on all this stuff, because this is going to be a very fascinating book to read 20 years from now. It's like the first era of Disney movies. What happened?
Oh yeah, someone is gonna get fired, and they're gonna be really angry, and they're gonna write a book, and Disney's gonna sue them, and then all this. It's gonna be a show.
Oh man, I wish the non-disclosure agreements would lapse a lot sooner than they're going to, because that would be just wonderful to read through all the production stories in all these films, because we don't know that much. It's all just conjecture.
No. Yeah, well, we hear rumors from grips who are posting on 4chan. So we or alleged grips. I don't know if they're even that. So
yeah, that's the thing.
Whenever we actually get some concrete stuff, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, do you have anything else you wanted to cover, touch base on? Anything else you're excited for?
Not particularly. I do hope that we get to, like you said, that The Mandalorian doesn't collapse in on itself. I don't think it will, because like you said, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, they seem to care about the series, so much so that they're threatening to fire people if they call the child Baby Yoda. So I hope that we get to see more from it. That's just what I'm most excited about. I do hope we get a new animated series that's not so childish like Resistance is. I would like to see one that has a serious tone like Clone Wars and Rebels did its last few seasons.
I would think that if they're going to do another series, it would probably be a little bit more laid back, just because I don't know what kind of major conflicts happen between the second and third, or the first and second civil wars in this galaxy. So if Dave Filoni did come along and do like a series that's all about Luke Skywalker's generation of students, and that, it would be really fascinating, but it would have to kind of come up with its own bad guys and its own problems, and that could be kind of a difficult bridge to kind of try to fill. But I think that there's a lot of potential, and I'm overall excited for where things are going. With a couple of caveats, that there are a couple projects I'm a little iffy on, like the Leslie what's her name project is like, what are you doing here? But
yeah,
but yeah, overall,
I think we'll see a lot of that for a little bit. What are you doing here? But then some of the stuff will go, whoa, where have they been? And we're like, oh, just go home. I think that's going to be what's going to happen going forward.
Yeah, I'd say there's more overall to be excited for than not to. Although I
agree.
I would like more games. I would like EA to finally get their head together and be like, oh, we found the one game people don't complain about. Let's make 5 more, or finally give us another good Star Wars RPG, or another game that they've been promising for whatever. Like, but yeah, there's a lot they could do that'd be cool. But yeah, overall happy. Do you have anything else, or?
No, that's it.
All right, cool. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you talking to you again about all this. So.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Sure thing. This has been Tyler with AntiSocial Network Podcast. Have a good day.
Tonight, I'm grateful. Tonight.